But many industry company, it started to focus on user interface.
You've had experience working in Sony. You've had experience doing research with your PhD when you're at University of Tokyo, as well as doing the affiliate position when you're at MIT. So from these three big positions, were there any big lessons that you learned?
We can also imagine with a virtual reality or some robotics, we can also imagine having a martial body at the same time.
Welcome to an episode on the Estelle Ingenuity podcast. I'm Stephen Estelle, engineer, CEO, and founder of Estelle Ingenuity. In our episodes, we dive into different experiences from people who specialize in technology, entrepreneurship, and other necessary elements that will help you reach your full potential in these fields. We focus in on innovative devices that will be changing our society, stories from entrepreneurs and how they maneuver through the business landscape, and how these new technologies are being used in businesses to bring value to the world. From these stories, if you are inspired to develop your own inventions and prototypes, and you want to see your innovative ideas flourish, reach out to us at estelleingenuity.com for your prototyping needs, so together we can begin creating the new devices of the future. With that being said, enjoy the show. Follow and subscribe to Estelle Ingenuity Podcast and relish the wisdom from the topic you hear today. Okay, so for our next episode for the Estelle Ingenuity Podcast, today we have Dr. Shunichi Kasahara today with us. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So it's actually kind of nice to have you here because I've seen some of the work that you've done with like different robotics and things like that. And so just to give some of the listeners kind of like some background of you. So I saw that from your presentation and things, you did your PhD at University of Tokyo, and then you did some affiliate professor work at MIT and things of that nature. And it seems like you've had good exposure to some of the interesting technology in that field. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you interested in? What got you into things?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hi, everyone. I'm a bit nervous myself.
No worries. Yeah.
So, my name is Shunichi Kasahara.
Nice.
So, I'm a researcher at Sony Computer Science Laboratory.
Nice.
And so my main topic is actually, research theme is called cybernetic humanity.
Okay.
Cybernetic humanity. So the main topic, my research is like the human-computer integration. So for instance, we know we are using smartphones, also computers, or many technologies around us. And then those kinds of technology is actually very helping us to do many things.
Right.
So, and a very essential, very simple example of the helping technology is actually key input to the
Like smartphones?
Smartphones.
Okay.
Yes. So you might know, like when you are typing in smartphone, it's small buttons.
Right.
It's very small, but even you input some mistake, like you made a mistake, some kind of input. The actually iPhone or Android will automatically correct your input.
Yeah, the auto. Yeah.
It's kind of the auto correction of the input.
Yes.
But those kind of is like more like assistant for from computer. So I think like a computer. So my main research area is one of my research areas is computer human interfaces. So how computer is providing some functional or ability for the human. But then in that case, like for instance, in the keyboard input, the iOS or kind of keyboard function will help you to input something as you want. That is a kind of the technology assistant. But more like that. But actually, the things is going more far beyond the assistants.
Right.
So for instance, like of course, those kinds of text auto correction is very simple. So text input is only correction on the text or word itself.
Right.
But what if the text or keyboard itself going to start to lighting your mind, be instead of yourself?
Okay. So it's just making it like more integrated inside.
Yeah, integrated inside. But that is the point. So for instance, the previous computer-human interaction or human-computer interface is just for how to say, bridging the computer and the interfaces. And then computer interface is actually helping the person or human to use a computer.
Okay.
But when now the technology is getting getting very emerging, and it's now like a computer and the human is more like for integrated together.
It's like a hybrid.
Yes, hybrid things together.
Interesting. So when you were going into the cybernetic kind of study in this kind of field, what actually introduced you to this, and why did you even get involved in this kind of research?
Yeah, so maybe like that's my story, maybe like why I'm here and why I'm doing my research.
Yeah.
Because before joining Sony Computer Science Laboratory, I was actually working as an engineer / researcher at the Sony Corporation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Was that fun?
That was fun, very fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, that was very fun. I don't advertise anything, but I think Sony Corporation is a very good company.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and very technology advancement, and they very good. I think they love the technology in many sense.
Nice.
And I was working on there. Then for user interface or user interaction sections. Then, for instance, I was developing some like a gesture control for the computer.
Like the PS?
Yeah, kind of the TV or some like a television.
Okay.
Or some like a small screen or even in the small camera.
Yeah.
I was, researching about the user interface for many devices.
It was in Tokyo.
Yes, that was Tokyo.
Okay, got it.
So that's so I think that was actually the 2009 or something. And in those at that time, how to say, computer interface is very focused because the iPhone comes. When in those times, I think the iPhone, iOS iPhone just came out in the market.
The iPhone 1.
iPhone 1 something.
Yeah.
And then many consumer electronics or company is actually astonished because very sophisticated, very elegant, very well-designed interface was coming from the Apple. And then also that's a huge providing very the interface, they found an interface makes some like industry benefit.
Okay.
They actually find user interface is very
very important.
Very important
vital.
for creating benefit.
Yeah.
Then that's why many, not only Sony Corporation, but many industry company started to focus on user interface.
I like that. Yeah. That was a good change.
That was a change happening in the 2009 or 11, 9 or 10, or 9, I think, 8 or something. And then I was there, and then I was researching on the user interfaces.
Nice.
Yeah.
So before we start diving into the cool engineering things,
Sure.
The one thing I actually want to ask, which I ask a lot of people, is actually what got you into engineering in the first place? And what kind of engineer were you? Were you electrical?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's actually kind of mixture of anything.
Okay.
So it's hard to say, but my my field is more like for software, I guess.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
But sometimes I have to work on the hardware or some like physical engineering.
Gotcha.
But it means basically I'm working on the software engineering, but based for designing user interaction or user interface, user interaction. I'm basically working on software, but sometimes, for instance, robotics, something.
Okay.
I also working on with robot.
So I'm assuming you prefer software versus hardware.
I mean,
when it comes to work,
honestly, I don't have any clear preference. So I am doing whatever I need.
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm a hardware guy.
Yeah.
I like 3D printing, but again, if you gotta make circuits, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, because my style is the research idea comes first, and then after that, I need to think of how we can make it possible.
Okay.
And sometimes I need software, and sometimes I need hardware, something. So
makes sense.
it's a mixture. So of course I cannot doing everything by myself. So
Right.
sometimes I need to collaborate with other guys.
Okay. So I want to get into actually a question that just came to mind. So you've had experience working in Sony, you've had experience doing research with your PhD when you're at University of Tokyo, as well as doing the affiliate position when you're at MIT. So from these three big positions, were there any big lessons that you learned that you think maybe younger researchers and engineers
I see.
actually might want to know?
Yeah, I honestly. So let me summarize my roughly path to
Go
my,
for it.
Yeah.
Go for
so the first maybe like work was the Sony Corporation.
Yeah.
And after that, I go to MIT Media Lab as a visiting researcher from Sony Corporation, like a scholarship program from Sony.
Yeah.
This is nice.
Yes.
And then doing a bit research project in the MIT Media Lab, I'm coming back to the Sony Corporation again.
Got it.
And then after that, I moved to the Sony Computer Science Laboratory,
Okay.
which I am in right now.
Got it.
And then with working in the Sony Computer Science Laboratory, I get a PhD at the Tokyo University.
So real briefly for the listeners, what's the difference between the Sony Corporation and Sony CSL, Computer Science Laboratories?
Yeah, so Sony Computer Science Laboratory, I say Sony CSL,
Yes.
is a kind of individual, independent research institute
Got it.
inside Sony, how to say,
I mean, it's a
corporation group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sony CSL is a very independent research institute. So it's they give us very many freedom what to do basically. And the main topic on the Sony CSL is actually research which will impact society. That's the main theme.
Okay,
But
that's good.
if any research comes with this theme, we
Yeah.
can do anything.
Really?
Yeah. So some research are actually very interesting. So me is working on the Sony. Me is working with the computer human integration.
Yeah.
The other guy is working on the processes.
Really?
Other working with agriculture, math, economics.
I like the variety of different themes. That
Yeah,
you see.
yeah.
That's
That's
pretty
a very, very, very variety.
Yeah.
And then it also like it's very, very, very interesting, inspiring, and a picky person comes. So it's very. So some person say like, "Oh, this is a zoo."
I can see that. You got like a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, but that's very interesting. There's all like Sony CSL is more like for independent research institute,
Got
but
it.
also some kind of a connection to Sony headquarters.
Got
So
it.
sometimes we can also contribute to Sony headquarters business, but it's not mandatory. So we can go both, like inside Sony, or we can also provide the research outcome to the society directly.
I like
So,
that.
yeah.
Okay. So then, going back to it, from these experience with Sony, MIT universities, as well as doing things where you are now in Tokyo,
Yeah.
what were some key things that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, so like back to your original question. Sorry. So
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
You asked some like what is the difference between those kind of
Yeah.
research headquarters or some academia, so research institute.
Mm.
So I think like there are to me like one very biggest difference between too many institutes actually industry between academia.
Okay.
That was I think biggest differences in the-
Academia versus industry.
yeah. So like because I actually started my whole career from industry.
Yeah.
So like industry, so we how to say then in some point I actually also tap into the academia as well. So and then I found many differences, and then I think like industry. So because this is industry, we have to get make it kind of shortly. We have to make it money.
Right. Yeah. That is like all right.
from the Sony from the Sony researches.
Makes
So
sense. Yeah.
so from that point of view, so like the how to say the ultimate goal is kind of like creating value for customer, society, of course, society, and then which is should be connected to some like kind of economic values. That
Okay.
is kind of from that point of view. How to say? Sometimes scientific findings or some scientific question is not mandatory to make economic value.
Got it.
Because if it's for instance, if we can create some like a research which provide some good benefit for the customer, and then it's end up to some business, which is nice. So if there are no academic values, which is nice. But in terms of academics, we have to find the very new scientific findings we have to find.
Right.
That is actually how academia goes. So there are several. I mean, the biggest difference between what is the ultimate goal?
Yeah. So actually, I got two questions on that. So the first question is, which do you prefer, industry or academia?
So that is actually to me it's like a pendulum. I mean, going back forth and going back forth.
Yeah.
But for me right now is like academia, finding new scientific findings. Is more curious to me. So I'm more into the academics. I mean, I want to find more new scientific findings.
So then going into the second question, Sony Computer Science Laboratories is academia or industry?
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
It seems like it's a middle ground.
Yeah, it's a middle ground, I think. Then that's a very unique point of Sony, I think Sony CSL. Because I believe that they allow us to go in both ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting combination, actually.
Yeah. And they actually understand that those kinds of preference will go into pendulum. So some point we want to focus on scientific findings. And if you find very good findings, maybe we can also coming back to make it more, product out of the science findings.
So I feel like a lot of labs do that, where they would start with a research question, and then they make a device, and then there's application. Let's get a startup or something. Then send it out. Okay, no, that's actually. I feel like I've seen that actually quite often in a lot of research labs and laboratories who do that.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm curious about is when you were working in the industry part of Sony Corporation, was there any big collaboration with international, like Sony in the United States? Reason I'm asking is because for my company, I kind of envision this idea of having engineers in Tokyo and engineers in California, Los Angeles, and them collaborating, because there's typically the idea that Japan is really good at making things perfect, like the trains and things like that, the cars, and then the United States is really good at innovating new ideas, let's go to Mars, and combining those ideas, I think would be a really good engineering company.
Yes.
So did you see any of that in Sony, working with engineers from other countries and things?
Yeah. I think I'm not so much a spokesperson of the Sony Corporation, but from my experience, because Sony and especially Sony CSL and Sony and overall have a larger many massive connection around the world, honestly. So because Sony cell, of course, Sony headquarters, Sony CSL also as a research section is in Tokyo or some around in Japan. But also, Sony has some research section in the US.
Right.
Also, there are some still, as far as I know, they still have some the research section in Europe side, I guess.
Okay.
So it's they have some worldwide connection each other, and then, especially for the US. For instance, Sony Pictures. I think that I forgot the correct name right now, but they changed name.
Yeah.
But for instance, the movie company Sony had Pictures.
Right.
They have a studio in the US, and they also have some of their own kind of the innovation and research and development studio with movie setup.
Okay.
So then it's kind of how to say new R&D for movie production or something.
Okay.
And then
based in the United States.
Yeah, United States. And I think I forgot the name. But anyway, something like US. I guess I think San Jose, San Francisco area.
Okay, California.
Yeah, California.
Yeah.
And then I see many collaboration with the Tokyo State, Tokyo area, and also California side and collaborating.
Yeah.
Some of my friends are actually working on those projects.
Okay.
And then one of my the friends in the Tokyo side is now living in California, they're working on. That's innovation for the movie production. So that's I think those kind of collaboration is always happening.
I like that. I think that's like a really good idea of like combining like California and Tokyo and bringing those two minds together. Or not even just California and Tokyo, but Japan and the United States specifically.
Yeah.
Did you, by chance, have any opportunity to work in the United States?
I mean,
through Sony?
so actually, that was more like for 9 years ago when I was in the Sony headquarters.
Yeah.
Some of the U.S. researcher, I think that she was the designer on the U.S. side.
Okay.
Just like staying the, I think like 1 year or half a year, staying in Tokyo.
Yeah.
That we collaborate together for designing new kind of interlock technology and also designing new technology. So I actually we work together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a difference between engineers in Japan versus engineers in the United States, for example? Or if you had to guess.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to say. I don't feel like any huge differences, honestly, because honestly, so from the point of the engineers, we have a very common languages in code.
True. That is true. That is true.
But I think from the point of the designing, for instance, like designing some experience, I guess, because it's a cultural differences there. So from I think like when I was working for headquarters, designing new product images, we actually go to the US and then do some movie shooting to create some potential idea of the product.
Okay.
Yeah, and then those times because the US has a more diversity and many culture background, so we can also get many insight from the many culture background. So it's like a advantage for the US, I guess.
Okay.
But also, of course, we can also take back those kind of insight into Tokyo, and then Tokyo also create some new technology and then back to the US, for instance. It's kind of going back. I don't know. That's possible, interesting syndrome, I guess.
That's a good point. I think that's actually pretty interesting. So yeah, I always wondered like what it would be like to get the experience of like industry in Tokyo. And, I hear different stories about working in Tokyo, and then hearing about how different it is when you like go to, let's say, San Francisco, and it's like the whole opposite. People are more like sitting on beanbag chairs and that kind of whole, I don't know, mindset or thing or anything. But I was just always curious about the differences between the two. So then from there, I'm interested in some of the projects that I've seen you present and that I've seen in person and some of the conferences that we've done. And also just getting your thoughts on where these projects have the potential to go. Because it seems like we mentioned before, on this pendulum, we're doing like a lot of academia right now. And then to see the industry potential for some of these. And so there are 3 projects that I've witnessed and that I'm actually interested in going into. And so the first one that I saw by you was the conference when we were in Tokyo. I think it was a SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, that was SIGGRAPH Asia.
SIGGRAPH.
Yes.
Yeah. And so at this conference, I saw the utilization with the ping pong example. And so you have it called the parallel ping pong. Yes, that's the one. So could you give some of the listeners what is the parallel ping pong project? It's actually pretty neat, and I think it has a lot of potential. So yeah, what?
Okay, so parallel ping pong is a new exploration to how can we have a marchful body.
Okay.
So because one of my research topics is parallel embodiment. The embodiment is like a feeling of the having bodies.
Okay.
Then of course usually we have one body, but we can also imagine with a virtual reality or some robotics, we can also imagine having a marchful body at the same time. And then of course there are many researches in lab kind of setup but I also want to explore kind of very unique way of the parallel multiple embodiment, parallel embodiment.
Right.
And then we came up like, maybe we can use a robot arm, using two robot arm, doing two ping pong at the same time.
With one user.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one user is controlling two robot arm, and then playing with two person in the two table at the same time.
Right. And then just to clarify for people, the individual that was playing ping pong and who was controlling the robot arms, they were using one arm to control two robot arms. So they weren't like using two arms controlling two. It was one arm that controlled the arms as the balls would come to each arm individually. Just to clarify that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that being said, so I guess first is, where do you see that? Where do you see that going?
Yes. So that, because this is very initial exploration, we found some possibility of doing parallel embodiment. Then also we found some limitation of the parallel embodiment. So that is actually the purpose of the parallel pinpoint project. So of course, for instance, when we think about the parallel multiple task, we can also things we can do is perceiving multiple event at the same time. It's actually kind of possible. So you see, like you can perceive that the ball is coming in left side, also right side. It's hard, but still it's possible to perceive the many multiple events coming at the same time. But acting in multiple body, moving to multiple body at the same time with my own random movement is very hard.
And it's very limiting because you only have so much body to move.
Yes. And also because the main limitation of the parallel embodiment is actually our conscious or attention. Because our attention or our conscious is very singular resources doing something.
Okay.
Yeah. So of course we can do like a piano playing, some like a cooking. So we can also using so many things in the same time, but it's actually coordinate everything into one action. But when we think of two action and the totally different two actions, it's almost impossible because we cannot provide like two attention, two conscious, at the same time.
Got it. Okay.
So it means it's actually two parallel action is almost impossible, honestly.
Almost.
Yes, almost. But that's the point.
Okay.
But we can also imagine like very quick time slicing, frequent change of the action.
Just quickly like multitasking.
Yes. Right. It's more like we can say like concurrent, right?
Okay.
So parallel is actually happening at the same time, very, parallel way.
Yeah, got it. So just same time.
But concurrent is like high speed switching to each actions. So it's more like a time sharing one resources.
Okay. Yeah, I'm imagining as if you had like a bar, you're splicing like two bars and putting them into one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we can also imagine like a CPU processing.
Okay.
So if you have a multi core, it's like a pure parallel processing.
Right.
So if you only have one core, single core, but we can also still using the parallel task in the very short frequent change of the task.
Yeah.
So it's more concurrent processing, right?
And it just has to switch.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So I think that's actually the possible way of doing parallel action, the parallel embodiment.
Okay.
So right now, after the parallel ping pong project, we are now investigating how we can switch quickly those multiple tasks in very kind of efficient way.
Yeah. Like the first thing that comes to mind is just like visual,
Yeah.
with like, so also in the ping pong project, if I remember correctly, he was wearing the VR, some goggles to give him like this first person view.
Yeah.
So then you can see, and then it would switch to the other one, so he gets the view of that hand, and it would switch back and forth. Are there other ways besides visual that you think could be other ways to?
Yeah, I think the visual is more like for easy to access some polarization because our visual perception having a multiple perception ability.
Okay.
Like for instance, when we think, imagine like we have many things going on in the screen.
Yeah.
We can actually track many things at the same time.
Okay.
So that is a parallel processing, right?
Okay.
So like for instance, those kind of things. Also we can also hear the sound in many multiple inputs, many sound coming on, but we can also barely see two conversations at the same time.
Yeah.
Roughly see. So we can leverage those parallelization but action itself is very difficult.
Yeah.
But we can also imagine like a visual task, it's a very simple it's a very display mouse cursor project, mouse cursor movement.
Okay.
And then we can also move the cursor, but we can also imagine like a four-split view. You can imagine this.
Like moving 4 mouse cursors?
Yeah, kind of four window, and then 4 mouse cursor in each windows, for instance. In the mouse.
I feel like I could actually possibly be very, well. Oh no, yeah, continue. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine like so that's a simple way. So imagine you have some like a multiple window and then multiple cursor at the same time moving.
Yeah.
But only when you are watching the screen, your movement is transferred to the mouse cursor, for instance.
So by your eye gaze.
Yeah, eye gaze. That's a very simple way. So only when you are watching the screen, you can transfer your movement doing task and then switch to another window doing task and switch to another task. So that's a naive switching.
Got it.
So it's also can be quick.
Yeah.
But we can also accelerate those switching in more efficiently.
And how do you do that?
That's the point. That's the point. So that is actually, it's also like a customer doing. So my collaborator is working with multiple cursor project.
Okay.
And then even you are not watching at your own main cursor, we can also, when you showing the cursor, which is not focused by yourself, but just showing the movement. Imagine instead of the gate. Imagine Imagine instead of the just gate switching and only showing one cursor, we can also show multiple cursor at the same time, all the time.
Okay.
Just simple, just all the time.
Okay.
But theoretically, we don't focus on the other cursors. It's looks like not so much meaningful.
Yeah, you just look at the one you're focusing. Yeah. Got it.
But we recently found by showing those kind of non-attention cursor, even we are not watching it, we can also accelerate the task switching.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with you already have control over it, so it's just a matter of paying attention.
And also matter of paying attention also, for instance, when we think about a match cursor, every time you switch your window, we have to calibrate the view coordination of each multiple windows. Because, for instance, imagine you have a match cursor and then moving a bit different. So always we have to calibrate your body view coordination for each window.
Okay.
So it's shortly say even we showing some window match cursor, we have to always switch your mind to the special coordinate, then switch your mode. That's it.
So what's the big reason of why not just use, let's say you have a mouse and like you said, you have 4 arrows on the screen. Why not just use a button on the mouse? But why does it have to be it switches that?
Yeah. The switch is actually, the button or switch is actually very hard to change because it's actually processes from cognitive processing of the switch. Imagine you want to switch to the window A to window B.
Yeah.
Then you have to recognize, I want to move to the window B, and then I need to press a button of B. So that's a kind of cognitive process happened.
I see.
And then always those kind of cognitive process happen. It's actually providing the different latency.
Got it. So you want it to be as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
So it's just seamless.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's actually the challenge of the multiple body project. So smooth switching between the multiple body is actually one possible.
Okay, I can see that. That was the end of an episode of the Estelle Ingenuity podcast. Hope you learned something new and innovative and were left inspired to go create and invent new ideas for the betterment of society. Make sure to follow and subscribe to the Estelle Ingenuity podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for more stories and experiences from people in the field and to hear about new up-and-coming technology. Thank you for listening and see you in the next podcast episode.